Hosting mega events will enhance Hong Kong's appeal and increase business opportunities. Mega event economy will bring enormous economic benefit to us. Different events, say for example on sports, on culture and meetings, will bring economic benefits to sectors such as tourism, hotel, catering, and retail. It shows that every 1.5 million visitors will bring 0.1 percentage point increase in our GDP. We have business leaders, artists, and athletes coming to Hong Kong to take part in these events. A lot of them are opinion leaders. They are influencers in their own field. They make use of their own network or their social media website to publish Hong Kong's vibrant life. We have an advantage to attract more mega events to take place here. What I'd like to ask members is that how can the government and the sectors work together to attract more mega events to come to Hong Kong? While the government's building a platform to promote Hong Kong, how can the sector add value to these events? How can visitor experience be enhanced in order to attract more visitors to come? Practitioners, what can they do to turn visitors into spending power? I look forward to the session. Mr. Paul Zhe. President, the general atmosphere and people's sentiment will directly affect whether a mega event will be successful. Perhaps because of low level of public money in the treasury, it seems that the government is tightening its enforcement of crossing roads without abiding the law, as well as clamping on operation of catering businesses and restaurant. It seems that the government is getting closer to mainland visitors who don't pay tax, but distancing themselves from taxpayers in Hong Kong. People feel tense and alienated. They don't want to participate in these mega events. It seems that the government's focus is put in the wrong place. People suffer in many different areas. The government cannot help people, and they talk about increasing taxes. Recently, there is this waste scheme. Officials blame the general public for its further postponement. Will the government do something to show that the views of taxpayers in Hong Kong is valued? Will they relieve people's livelihood difficulties and change the draconian atmosphere in Hong Kong so that Hong Kong people will feel relaxed and enjoy these mega events so that we can all work together to boost Hong Kong's economy? Thank you. Chief Executive. Hong Kong faces many challenges. Political challenges aside, our economy is also under enormous impact. The equity market, the stock market are going through a lot. People's moods have been affected. What we can do is to try to do better ourselves and to make us more competitive. The real way to go forward is not a pessimistic one. We have nighttime economy, we have night and day vibe activities to attract people. At the same time, there may be difficulties or problems such as noise and traffic congestion. We need to do it well. We still need to be law abiding. We need to strike a balance. If we go along the wrong path and form the wrong idea, that is not something we want to see. I strongly object to commentaries that stoke conflicts. The government's job is to take care of the needs of different sectors and different people. Of course, sometimes a policy will bring 100% benefit to a certain group of people, but a smaller benefit to different other groups. But we should not allow feelings to be stoked because of the differences. We should not stoke conflicts relating to people from different areas. We welcome visitors from different places and we stage publicities in many different places. A description that creates conflict is wrong. I have the duty to guide our community along the right line of thinking. We should prevent minor conflicts from snowballing. We now have patriots administering Hong Kong. If we don't work together, and if instead we spread negative vibes and erroneous messages, then we should speak out against them. I have heard some rather dangerous terms used. It brings to mind what happened in 2019, the black-led violence, and the adjectives we heard at that time that are anti-revolutionary. When we spot these adverse narratives, we have to stop it immediately. That should be our consensus. We do have a series of events promoted. They may at the same time create minor problems, but it should not stop us from doing the right thing. I am aware that you look forward to new lines of thinking from the government to boost our economy further. That is one of the reasons why I advocate the promotion of mega event economy. We want to make the pie bigger so that we can all share the fruit of our labor. The financial secretary is consulting in this area. I think in the budget delivered at the end of February, these different comments collected will be addressed. Ms. Judy Chan, the chief executive, talked about wave after wave of mega events in Hong Kong this year. We don't doubt about our ability to attract mega events, but there is always room for improvement. The party chairman, Mrs. Ip, said that if we could invite Taylor Swift or Beyoncé to come to Hong Kong to have a concert, that would be even better. I think the government should do better to support the business sector. We have a large number of mega events. They are of good quality, but I think we can still do more on publicity. The chief executive talked about influencers. They do have great influence. A post in Twitter or Instagram will attract thousands of or tens of thousands of followers. And these followers identify themselves with the views of these influencers. I think their posts are more effective than our conventional publicity means. I know that the tourism board is doing something similar. They have asked influencers to come to Hong Kong to make clips. However, the board only invited influencers to come to our tourist spots instead of asking them to participate in mega events. And these influencers are mostly from the mainland or from Southeast Asia. Hong Kong is still attractive to visitors from the West. However, some Western medias often smear Hong Kong with negative publicity. I asked the chief executive to look into asking influencers from the US and Europe to take part in our mega events to tell good stories of Hong Kong.
Mr. Vincent Chang, thank you. I thank the Chief Executive and the Culture, Sport and Tourism Bureau for funding many sports and cultural events. I follow closely the landmark events. Last year, there were 16 events. They exceeded expectations. There were new attempts. There is a show match involving Lionel Messi. There is a triathlon coming up. Soon, there will be the Rugby Sevens to be held in April. Before COVID, this event drew 20,000 visitors each year, daily spending at 13,000 Hong Kong dollars. So major sports events plus tourism is viable. Here are some ideas I have. First, publicity. Let's better integrate mega events and tourism. We are falling short on promotion. Locals and tourists have told us the government is sponsoring so many such events. So let's work through the Tourism Board, Tourism Commission, and the ETOs, Economic Trade Offices, work harder on promotion, let the world know. Let's set up key performance indicators. Say for each match, we need to attract at least visitors making up half of the attendees. Now, for the major event economy, this will take more than the CSTB. We need other policy bureaus to be proactive in helping out. Education Bureau, Health Bureau, Transport and Logistics Bureau. They can have one or two summits or forums each year, and then we integrate that with the sports culture event so that visitors come here not just for conferences, they can also take part in sports events, culture events. Thank you, Chief Executive. I want to respond to the point raised by the member. I support the holding of different mega events in Hong Kong, such as having pop stars holding concerts here. We will work towards those goals. But it's just like asking someone out. You can call the person. We talk. But that person has to be available. And a trip to Hong Kong needs to work for that person's schedule. We will keep working on this. We work through agencies sometimes. We need someone to go between. So the government can play a role in helping make things happen. On inviting renowned people, maybe they're pop stars or other performers, or renowned speakers or conferences, winners of the Nobel Prize. Getting these people to come here can create a magnet effect. We will work on that, but we need all factors to come together to make things work out. Promoting mega events in Hong Kong is something where different policy bureaus can play their respective roles. The CSTB takes the lead. The Tourism Board, the Tourism Commission also have key roles to play. On inviting celebrities and getting major sport events to town, these commissions and board have achieved results. We have seen attendance of over 1 million visitors to some major events in the past. Other bureaus also have a part to play. As Mr. Vincent Chang said, we're holding the Asian Financial Forum. That's where the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau is doing its work in promoting a conference economy. The Commerce and Economic Development Bureau also helps hold events such as the Belt and Road Forum. On transport and logistics or port development, the Transport and Logistics Bureau also holds conferences on this front. So bureaus have their respective roles to play. I also ask these bureaus to consider creating more value in holding these events by fusing more elements into it, tourism, retail, etc. Hong Kong is a food paradise. We have many Michelin-starred restaurants after all. These extra activities can give inbound visitors an experience of the many options Hong Kong has to offer, and then these visitors can spread the word after they return to their home countries. Another point raised by Mr. Vincent Chang is that it's more than about money. We need to offer ease for organizers to make events happen. The CSTB has played a role. But to achieve even greater success, we will need a system to coordinate the work. Within the government, I'm thinking about some arrangements. The Deputy Financial Secretary has experience in coordinating work on the economy. So how do we have a kind of institutional arrangement to offer one-stop service? So we need to start somewhere. We need to establish the contact points for an organizer of events. So the Hong Kong Tourism Board can be a contact point, but this will require further discussion. We need coordination. It will involve license applications and crowd management. If we can cover that, then potential event organizers will be more confident and they will see the enthusiasm on the part of the government. That will help any potential discussion about holding events here. I want to stress that apart from the government, community input also matters. Say you have a match or a concert or any other event. Events become a success because networks play a role. So we need people-to-people ties. So we need people to work together. People and their networks work like a lubricant in the process. So we will keep working on this. Ms. Chen Yutming. Thank you. Good morning, Chief Executive. I support the government's effort to promote a mega event economy. Now we can have more mega events. This will become IPs for Hong Kong and they can help the economy. Most mega events are just in the harbor metropolis. Those places are easily accessible. People can enjoy the sea view. Yesterday, some LegCo members proposed holding concerts. In the new territories, we have the space, a spacious site for events. People can come to Hong Kong through the land-based boundary control points. They have to go past the new territories. So the new territories has what it takes to hold mega events, including mega concerts. In the past, the new territories held different cultural events, the Jiao Festival, the birth of the temple goddess, etc. So my question for the chief executive is, has the government given thought to holding mega events in the new territories? Say we find a few sites so that event organizers get more options in venues. Mr. Sunny Tan. Good morning, Chief Executive. I thank the Chief Executive for adopting our idea by holding Fashion Week in Hong Kong. This will be a mega event. This can help promote the mega event economy and boost the economy. To bring more mega events to town, we need foresight and also competitive hardware and software. Let's look at the venue. In Tokyo, they have the arena with seats for 120,000 people. In Seoul, a stadium can accommodate 70,000 people. Let's come back to Hong Kong. The closest we get is the Kai-Tak Sports Park to be completed, which can accommodate 50,000 people. Now, software. Many Asian countries have local bodies to coordinate measures about transport and catering arrangements. So my point is, how do we make a medium to long-term plan to foster the mega event economy? And how do we be more aggressive and have foresight in boosting our competitive edge to make up for where we're weak in our hardware and software? How can we do more in our culture, sports, and tourism facilities, apart from the Xiju Center? Can we have landmark buildings like the Sydney Opera House to boost our mega event economy? Chief Executive. I thank Ms. Chen Yudming and Mr. Sunny Tan for their ideas and questions. So it's about venues and also software. Now, on venues, Hong Kong needs to work harder. The Kai-Tak Sports Park will be completed either by the end of this year, maybe the fourth quarter this year at the soonest. After doing some tests, the site will be open for use. This will be our largest venue with capacity for 50,000 people. Apart from that, the main stadium, we also have an indoor stadium offering 10,000 seats. Altogether, we will have capacity for 60,000 people for both open-air events and also indoor events. Now, there's also another composite stadium for 5,000 people. We need to work harder on venues. For conferences, we hold them in Wan Chai and also the Asia World Expo. Now, we have made full use of those two places. For exhibitions, we have plans to redevelop some buildings, government buildings, to be redeveloped or repurposed for exhibitions. Now, for the Asia World Expo, there will be works on expanding the facility. So we can potentially boost the capacity by up to 40%. But for that to happen, it would take time. It would take time for the works to complete. So we have to catch up to achieve results. Now, another point is about the location. Ms. Chen Yudming brought up using the new territories, holding mega events in the northern metropolis in the new territories. That's our direction. The northern metropolis offers space and opportunities. We can have a large-scale thematic venue. We can have performance venues with more seating capacity. We can consider that. Another option we can explore is this. Across districts, there are district theme events. Between mega events and district events, I want to create thematic events that can come up again and again. Mr. Perry, you offered a possibility. So, culture plus tourism, such as heritage tourism. In the new territories, there are walled villages. Visitors look for experience. They want an in-depth experience of the culture and the life of the destination. So I want diversified development in our development. We don't take a single approach. We instead take a diversified approach. So aside from mega events, we're also working on district level events. And then in between, we can have peer-based projects such as Fishermen's Wharves, which you see overseas. And then in the new territories, there are villages. We need to look for ways to make that kind of tourism attractive too. This would take creativity and committed people who can bring out the features of these places. So the government needs to work together with the community. We will promote the work and facilitate the process. We also need people to come up with ideas and tell us their ideas. We need to hear from different people. Now, on software, we need to make mega events a success. We also need to create greater value. In March and even in January, there are many mega events because of the weather or other reasons, and this has to do with scheduling. There are many slots in the first quarter of the year. So mega events tend to cluster in a certain quarter or two. The upside is that we can have a magnet effect, but that will also mean competing priorities or resources. We cannot spread out the mega events throughout the year. So what happens to the remaining months when you see few mega events? That's something to think about. So on the point about software brought up by Mr. Sunny Tan, a high-level coordination group overseeing the work, and also spreading out the events throughout the year will mean we don't have to worry about clashes in demand for resources, and then we can also draw visitors to town throughout the year. That's how we can make the best use of our capacity. I thank the member for his comments.
Mr. Chen Pui Leung, thank you. I have a suggestion and a question. The suggestion is that, we have a large number of mega events in Hong Kong with different topics and different audience, but these are rather fragmented. Some mega events might have taken place in Hong Kong, but you don't know when they will come again. I think we should make use of mega events with a branding effect. For successful ones, say Rugby Sevens, Standard Chartered, Marathon, and international financial conferences, we can do more work on successful events to enhance Hong Kong's publicity and image so that they can keep coming. My question is to attract mega events, successful people to come to Hong Kong, we need to provide facilitating measures. On the 1st of June 2022, the government rolled out entry facilitation scheme covering 12 sectors, but there is a premise. The events or personnel will have to be first approved by relevant authorities before invitations can be sent. Of these 12 sectors, so far, there is one that is close to mega events, that is art, culture, and mega events. Can you tell us how successful the scheme is? Can the scheme help with the hosting of mega events? If it is successful, will you extend the period of the scheme or make it a standing one? Ms. Doreen Kong, I've just read a book published in 2017, Maximizing the Benefits of Mega Events for Tourism. It's World Tourism Organization that wrote it. In the book, there has been analysis on different mega events. In the conclusion, the author talked about this. Mega events is not the ultimate goal. It's only a tool to develop tourism. If we are to attract visitors to these mega events, there should be meticulous planning and facilities in place. Otherwise, nothing will happen when the event goes. I'd like to ask, in terms of tourism development, what is the goal of organizing these mega events? Do we have meticulous plans in place? Chief Executive, I thank Mr. Chan and Ms. Kong for their views and their questions. First, the brand effect. I do agree with that because it will make the event more well known. The brand publicizes itself anyway, so the events they host will be better known. In the past, we've had a French brand hosting a mega event in Hong Kong. It's very attractive because the brand itself is well loved. What I learned from this event is that it has done a lot to promote Hong Kong to the rest of the world. It reaches out to hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. People who come to the event also publicize Hong Kong through their own social media and network. Facilitating measures have been mentioned. If I understand the members correctly, it's about inviting people and events that come to Hong Kong. Approvals will have to be given, say, for example, by granting work permits. We have already relaxed the procedure. We have not encountered any problems since the relaxation. So it's not something of concern when we host mega event. The problems that may arise is beyond the scope of the CSTB. I mentioned about a coordinating committee headed by the Deputy Financial Secretary. I'm sure that the problems will be easily ironed out. Just now, a member talked about hosting mega events being a means and a tool. I agree, yes. Mega events is a tool, it's at the same time a goal. It's a tool because it brings economic benefits. It also advertises Hong Kong, but itself is a goal because it brings a lot of benefits. The events will accomplish a lot of things that we can't do. Say, for example, enhancing visitors' experience, dispelling misinformation and negative publicity of Hong Kong, because when visitors come, they see for themselves that Hong Kong is energetic and Hong Kong continues to shine. So the events themselves are a tool and a goal. We need a correct understanding. We want the general public to have a correct understanding. Mega events is not about the organizer or participants. It's about everyone because it brings economic benefit. It advertises Hong Kong. It enhances Hong Kong's competitiveness and elevates Hong Kong's image. Everyone will benefit. Our economy will develop. Business opportunities will increase. In the end, everyone will enjoy the fruit. Regarding our plans, we've been doing publicity work for a very long time. The Tourism Board and the Tourism Commission, as well as the CSTB, have vast experience. We have an increasing number of visitors after resumption of normalcy. But we need to boost our capacity. We have to enhance our capacity in all areas. Manpower is another hurdle. That's why we need importation of labor to help boost our capacity. On the macro level, we need to put in place measures to maximize the benefit. We want everyone to enjoy the benefit of economic development. There can always be new ideas to boost our competitiveness. That's why we have a coordinating working group to assist. There will be an upcoming Tourism Development Blueprint 2.0. We will do better. This is the end of part 1. The topic of part 2 is Basic Law Article 23 legislation. Members who wish to speak in this part, please press the request to speak button. Chief Executive, please speak on part 2. President, the topic of the second part is Basic Law Article 23 legislation. Basic Law Article 23 legislation is the constitutional duty of Hong Kong. This duty has been outstanding for 26 years since the reunification. In the 2023 policy address, I made clear that within this year, 2024, the legislation will complete so that we can fulfill our constitutional duty. We can't forget what happened in 2019 when we had black-led violence and Hong Kong version of colored revolution. Harm has been caused to Hong Kong. So we have real risk of national security, and the risks are here every day. Hostile forces are always waiting for a chance to pounce. So we need to make good use of time to legislate to respond to emerging national security risks and threats. National security is the best safeguard for the well-being of people and economic development. Mr. Xia Baolong of the Hong Kong Macau office in April last year on the National Security Education Day speak as a keynote speaker. He said that everything seems to be calm in Hong Kong, but there are undercurrents. The root of chaos has not been eradicated. We still need to strengthen our foundation for stability. We have to guard against emerging risks. We have to be vigilant against forces trying to stir up trouble in Hong Kong. Anti-China, anti-Hong Kong elements want to stir up trouble under the pretense of livelihood issues and economic development. We should not let our guard down. Mr. Xia, in December last year, in the 10th anniversary celebration ceremony of an organization, said all of Hong Kong should be on the same side as the Hong Kong SAR government. We should take concrete actions to ensure that the weakness that caused a threat to national security removed so that we can focus on developing our economy. We want to let investors know that they can invest here and start their business here, and everyone can chase for their dreams without having any worries. On the 28th of May 2020, the National People's Congress made a decision to authorize the NPC Standing Committee to enact the Hong Kong National Security Law. They required the Hong Kong SAR to strengthen the bodies in charge of national security, the implementation system, and enforcement capabilities. Article 7 of the National Security Law stipulates that the Hong Kong SAR shall complete as early as possible legislation for safeguarding national security as stipulated in the Basic Law and shall refine the relevant laws. What I'd like to ask members is, in fulfilling our duty, our legal and constitutional duty, how do we deal with the interface and complementarity between Article 23 and the NPC decision in 2020, as well as the Hong Kong National Security Law? And in face of growing geopolitical tension and threats to national security emerging anytime, as well as the rapid advancement in technology and the clandestine nature of espionage, as well as the emerging risk of national security, how can we ensure that Article 23 legislation will be forward-looking, will be effective in responding to unanticipated new risks, and to tackle emerging risks in order to safeguard national security and ensure Hong Kong's long-term stability and prosperity? I look forward to hearing from you all. Chief Executive, I'm sure that majority of Hong Kong people fully understand their constitution, their duty to ensure national security and the importance of legislating for Basic Law Article 23. However, in the past, when it comes to policy formulation, a lot of people with a hidden agenda take certain words out of context and created conflicts. I see that the concern of Hong Kong people these days is whether the legislation is easily comprehensible, whether someone will inadvertently break the law. Most of the legislation is in English, The Chinese is only a translation, and there may be different ways of interpretation of the texts. How can the government enhance publicity so that the laws will be easily understood and correct information is disseminated to make to give them peace of mind? Mr. Edmund Wong. For various reasons, there has been different obstacles in the legislation of Article 23. This year, the government is going to introduce the National Security Bill to LegCo. Hong Kong has a duty to complete the task, to fulfill our constitutional duty. We now see widespread application of AI. There are cases of abuse. Recently, there is an AI-generated video clip using past clips of the chief executive to create a fake video clip that is fraudulent. Apart from these investment scams, people with hidden agendas also use big data and AI to engage in activities that undermine national security. So we all have to be extra cautious. In order to ensure national security, we have to make sure that AI is safe. We all have to make sure that data is safe. I'd like to ask the chief executive, when you legislate for national security, will you cover these two areas in relation to data exchange across the boundary? It's something that has to be done, and we have the duty to ensure data security. So the government will have to closely liaise with the National Data Department to protect data so that foreign forces will not have a chance to do anything bad to us.
Mr. Edmund Wong, Chief Executive, on May 28, 2020, the NPC authorized the NPCSC to enact a national security law and require the Hong Kong SAR government to establish and improve legal system and enforcement mechanisms for the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region to safeguard national security. The law also says that Hong Kong should complete as early as possible legislation to safeguard national security. As our government fulfills this constitutional duty, how should we handle the way the national security law interact with the future legislation of Basic Law Article 23? Chief Executive, I've heard the comments from Reverend Peter Kuhn, Professor William Wong, and Mr. Edmund Wong. On Basic Law Article 23 legislation, we have a goal on several fronts. First, we need foresight in the future legislation. Technology presents new challenges. This is where I want to consult members on. Data security matters. Data are more than an asset. In national security, and also in the context of this tug of war between major powers, data can be a weapon, an instrument. So data security matters. Technology changes rapidly. Technology may move faster than we think. So our legislation needs to allow for technological changes. But we should also beware that our law should not be dictated by where technology is going. We need to take an approach where we can cope with technological changes. So a technology neutral approach may be an option. artificial intelligence may go wherever it goes, and then there may be future abuses about AI and big data. A technology neutral approach will mean we don't need amendment just because there are future changes in the technology. So that's what I mean by foresight. So a technology neutral approach is the preferred way to go. But how do we get there? That's the challenge. The Security Bureau and the Department of Justice are working on this point. We should also learn from overseas experience. The thinking behind overseas legislation is also often technology neutral. So data security is something we need to address. We also need to work on cyber security. So we need the security of cyber infrastructure to guard against hackers. We need data security. So do we need dedicated legislation for that, or should we put that as part of national security? We need to think about that. But members and I agree that these matters are important. I thank Reverend Peter Kun and Mr. Edmund Wong for stating that we need to properly handle the way the national security law, the future legislation, basically Article 23, and the NPC's May 28th decision interact. But explanation matters. This is the most important work. I would take a systematic approach to the work. We will have several task forces to explain the work. The Secretary for Security and the Secretary for Justice and I will take the lead in explaining the legislation. But other bureaus will also be involved in promotion and explaining the legislative work. On coordination, we will have a team on core explanation and then another team on support. And then I will coordinate the work. The Secretary for Security, the Secretary for Justice, and I will be the lead officials on explaining the work. But other officials, such as the Financial Secretary, will also help coordinate the work. So we will coordinate the work. There will be core explanation. Then there will also be a support team. We need to talk to different sectors. This includes businesses, the media, consuls general, and also foreign business chambers. The work at the district level also matters. We now have the new district councils. We also have care teams. At the district level, there will be a drive to explain the work. There are patriotic groups in Hong Kong, NPC delegates, and members of the National Committee of the CPPCC. They will also help with the education and explanation efforts. The entire HKSAR needs to get involved. The government takes the lead. After 2019, there is a community consensus that we need to get national security right. The sooner we can get this right, the sooner we can put our minds at ease. So we need to work on this. We also need to explain the law to the international community. Government officials will do the work, but then I also hope that LegCo members here and also scholars, different specialists can also play their respective roles. Mrs. Regina Ip, for example, is very good at talking to foreign media. She presents her arguments well. Mr. Lai Tong Kwok, the former Secretary for Security, is also very good at explaining. Ms. Starry Lee, a member of the MPCSC, can also help. There are different scholars, experts in the community. They can also help explain the spirit behind the legislation to people. Countries everywhere have their own national security laws. We have maybe 12% of what other countries have in their national security laws. We have just the national security law now. Other countries may have more than 20 laws on their own national security. I mentioned 12% in particular because we have incomplete laws. We have treason as an offense. And then on the ties between political bodies in Hong Kong and foreign political bodies, we don't have well-established laws on those two. The national security law helps address the problems that surfaced in 2019, but there are more problems that need to be addressed. But we are only dealing part of the offenses that are covered by national security legislation elsewhere. We also adhere to international standards when it comes to safeguarding rights and human rights. There is the basic law protecting human rights. Both the basic law and the NSL state clearly. We follow the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and also the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. These two covenants are applicable to Hong Kong. They will also apply to our national security legislation. We will also mention that in our explanation. I hope people can get involved as well. Mr. Dennis Leung.
Thank you. I myself and the FTU strongly support the government's effort to legislate for Article 23. The current situation is that a vehicle is stuck on the side of the road without a wheel. I think the wheel will have to be installed as soon as possible. The vehicle equipment will have to be enhanced to protect us. We now face daily risks. We have external forces creating misinformation online, and there is also soft resistance. It shows that Hong Kong is still in a precarious situation. People keep testing this red line. The government should step up its effort and expedite its effort to introduce the bill to LegCo. We should not allow anti-China and anti-Hong Kong elements to stay here. We should not allow them any opportunity to damage the recognition of one country, two systems in the international community. I have a question. Legislating to protect national security is an international approach. According to legal experts, the Article 23 legislation being drafted compared to overseas jurisdictions, does it have a sufficient coverage? Is there sufficient deterrent effect in the penalties? Mr. Tony Zhe. President, on behalf of 18 legislative members of G19, I express our support to the Hong Kong SAR government to fulfill its constitutional duty to legislate for Article 23. As the chief executive pointed out, it's been over 20 years since the reunification. A lot of Hong Kong people have gone through the turmoils created by black-led violence. We want to defend our territorial unity. We oppose to interference from external forces. We fully understand that legislation is crucial to ensuring the well-being of Hong Kong people as well as Hong Kong's long-term stability and prosperity. I'm happy to hear from the chief executive that he will do a good job of publicity and explanation because he knows it's important. There will be dedicated teams to take up the work. We are legislators. We can and we should assist the government in the explanation work to the general public. We have teams of experts. We can do our work well. Perhaps the chief executive can ask Policy Bureau and departments to provide support to us, perhaps in a form of information kit. The assistants can help us in carrying out our work to explain the explanation. The DAB supports the legislation of Article 23. This will address the shortcoming of our system so that we can focus on developing our economy. This is not just a duty from the central authorities. This is also consensus in the community. We need the legislation to truly protect rights and freedom of Hong Kong people so that our society can be a safe and stable business environment. We need to complete the local legislation as soon as possible, and the work should not be taken up by government officials. Legislators and patriotic groups should all work together to support the work of the legislation. Can the chief executive tell us how he mobilizes the entire society to help with the legislation work? I have heard from a number of members, Mr. Leung, Mr. Zhe, and Mr. Lee. What they've said is actually in line with what I have in mind. I thank Mr. Leung for speaking out about the severity of the problem. The car is not just missing a wheel, but many other parts as well. As I said, that our legislation is only a small part compared to the national security legislation of other jurisdictions. And of course, the other jurisdictions, they have comprehensive legislation. From our research, we found that there are 21 pieces of legislation in the US that is about national security. In the UK, 14. In Canada at least 9. Australia, at least 4. Singapore, we believe that there are at least 6 pieces of legislation on national security. New Zealand, 2. But in Hong Kong, only 1. That is the Hong Kong National Security Law, covering only 4 categories of crimes. So in the macro view of national security, we have a very small system. But of course, countries that will benefit when our national security is undermined will attack us. We need to protect us. I thank you for giving us a metaphor to help the public understand that we need to legislate as soon as possible to address the shortcoming. I'd like to also thank Mr. Zhe and Mr. Li. How can we do better in our explanation work? Of course, there is always room for improvement. We will keep doing it and doing it at a more extensive level. I thank everyone who participate, including members here and patriotic groups. I agree that departments should provide information to you all. There should also be a contact point so that we can provide you with information that helps you explain the legislative exercise. We have these in place. What makes me happy is that you all say that you will give me the support we need to take forward the legislative exercise. You will mobilize different district groups, people who love Hong Kong, to pitch in. I'm sure with a concerted effort, we will be able to fulfill the constitutional duty that has been outstanding for 26 years. As I said in my introductory remark, that national security is the best safeguard for the well-being of people and economic development. When we have completed the legislation for Article 23, then we can focus without any worries on economic development and to resolve livelihood issues. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok, thank you. 21 years ago, when the National Security Legislative Provisions Bill was introduced to LegCo, I was one of the members in the Bills Committee, and I am the only one who is still serving. The bill lapsed. I found it extremely regrettable. Legislating for Article 23 is the constitutional duty of Hong Kong. That's what I think. Every time when I was asked what is the best time for legislation, I said that any time is a good time. We're only waiting for the government to make a move. It's always been my wish as a legislator to see Article 23 legislation enacted. Time has changed. First, there has been rapid changes in the geopolitical environment. And now we're in Hong Kong, we're moving from chaos to stability to prosperity. We've gone through a lot. The perpetrators of 2019 turmoil have either absconded or imprisoned. And people who have left Hong Kong under the protection of overseas organizations continue to organize activities trying to undermine us. The technological environment has also changed a lot. there are new emerging challenges on security in the digital environment. When you legislate for Article 23, will you take into account the emerging risks because of these changes? Will you roll out new measures and incorporate them into the legislative exercise? Some practitioners in the creative and culture industries have been misled into taking the wrong line of thinking. Will you do anything to help them?
Mr. Jeffrey Lam, you have launched measures to ease people's livelihood issues, and those measures have worked. Now, at this point, you're proposing legislation for Basic Law Article 23. You're in a solid position. The BPA and the business community support the early legislation for Basic Law Article 23. After all, this is the constitutional duty of Hong Kong. This legislation can bring stability to Hong Kong's political scene. This can also minimize business risks. The law will help foster efforts to attract investment and firms. Now is a good time. We support the early legislation of Article 23. Chief Executive, when we bring up this legislation, some people will take this chance to badmouth Hong Kong. Given the smearing attempts that will happen, what will we do? For attempts and remarks to smear Hong Kong, how can we counter those to reassure the public and investors? Chief Executive, let two more members ask questions before you give a response. Mr. Tommy Cheung. Thank you. I agree with what you say in the opening remarks. For any modern country, they have national security legislation. National security is a concept that applies everywhere. No place will tolerate a vacuum in national security. This is indisputable. Just as Mr. Ma Fong Kwok brought up 2003. I was also there at the Bills Committee in 2003. I was also at the Bills Committee. The Liberal Party supports legislation for Basic Law Article 23. We see a pressing need for this law. Chief Executive, you said guarding against foreign attempts to smear us. I've looked at the UK's National Security Act. I will also look at the US and Australia. After our bill is passed, we can then compare and contrast. We can then look at the national security legislation elsewhere. Chief Executive, can you get your colleagues to move fast by submitting the blue bill to LegCo swiftly? Mrs. Regina Ip. Thank you, President. The New People's Party is pleased to hear that the Chief Executive would like to fulfill our constitutional duty as quickly as possible. Our entire party supports this legislation. More than 20 years ago, I was among the officials. I would very much like to see that we finish this job. As the Chief Executive said, other countries have harsher national security laws. They have more statutes. In the UK, in last July, they passed their National Security Act. It's more than 200 pages long. They introduced new offenses. One thing we should look at is that circumstances change. Criminals use technology to commit crimes. How can our laws keep up? Let's look at what the UK has done. The UK reviews their codes of practice after the act was passed. The code is under a schedule to a law. It takes just 6 weeks to complete the consultation, and then their law enforcement got new powers. Can we have this fast track approach? Can we update our code of practice for our law enforcement? Chief Executive. I thank the 4 members who spoke. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok, Mr. Tommy Chung, Mrs. Regina Ip. In fact, 3 members who spoke. Mrs. Regina Ip brought up the UK's National Security Act, which was passed not too long ago. The UK has harsh national security laws. In the UK, it takes just a Secretary of State under the new laws to prevent someone from holding a bank account on national security grounds. In the UK, they can make someone go through a polygraph test. In another country, the national security legislation there says the president of that country can detain someone for up to 2 years, and this is extendable on national security grounds. We have looked at national security laws in different countries. Each country enacts its own national security laws within its own context. We looked at the laws elsewhere, but we will also think about which laws, which provisions apply to Hong Kong's conditions. Just then, a member brought up the ever-changing technology. Mrs. Ip brought up the use of code of practice within the schedule of a ordinance, so that we don't have to go through the amendment of main legislation. I thank Mrs. Ip for that idea. For us, I've listened to members' comments. We have a consensus that we have to fulfill this constitutional duty that is overdue for more than 20 years. How do we fill the gap? In 2019, we saw Black Plaid riot. That was a wake-up call to us. We failed to get through the legislation back then. Hong Kong people don't realize the dangers lying out there. Many countries have been watching Hong Kong in a menacing way. But then the pain of 2019 came. National security risks were right before us. We went through those hard times. We went through the pain. That was a wake-up call. We have to be on our guard against hostile forces. We need to guard against espionage. We try to be a gentleman, but we have to be on our guard. We assume espionage will not happen in Hong Kong. at a gallery displaying information about terrorism. There was this case: a spy went to a country, got married, had a child. When this spy left, the plane was bombed. No one realized this was a spy. We would think this would happen only in a film. But at that museum, I saw this case. So we have waken up to this reality. We still try to be a gentleman, but we need to be on our guard against hostile forces. Hostile forces want to get the most they can out of Hong Kong. And that's against our interest. We need to protect ourselves. We need to protect our people's well-being. We need to protect our economy. So we will work on this. We also need to be able to counter. We've seen massive campaigns online to smear us, to distort facts in the past. We believe that will happen again this time around. So if you see smearing campaigns online, let us know. We will set up a team to counter this kind of smearing campaign, targeting social media sites in particular, so that we tell the fact. With this consensus, we will complete the legislation for Basic Law Article 23 as soon as possible. This way, we can finish the job and then we can focus on the economy and development. Thank you, President. Chief Executive, please deliver your concluding speech. President. I thank the members who have spoken and raising questions. We had a constructive exchange. The first topic today was about promoting mega event economy. That is about leveraging Hong Kong's status as an international city. Doing that can help boost the economy, promote business opportunities. That's a key direction we pursue in pursuing high quality development. Members support promoting a mega event economy. This can help boost our economy, generate income for locals. We need attractive programs. We also need to create greater value. This means adding features of local characteristics, arts, culture, dining, shopping, thematic tourism. We need a mega event economy, and this is where the government offers support. But to make the mega event economy a success, the organizers and the industries play a key role. This means the hotels, retailing, and catering sectors, and the workers in those industries. We need to translate footfall into spending. We need people to spend money and get return customers. We need to make return customers out of inbound visitors. And we need to get people to spend at night. This is where we need sectors and industries to come up with ideas. They need to deliver what customers want. Hong Kong's business operators and workers are good at what they do. I believe they can showcase what we have taken our pride in and what we've been so good at. For every 1.5 million visitors, we will get a 0.1% boost to our gross domestic product. After these visitors return to their home countries and cities, they can spread the word about their experience. that leads to a multiplier effect that will let more people know about the real Hong Kong and the many things to do in Hong Kong. Now, on the second topic, on Basic Law Article 23 legislation, this is a pressing task. We all agree that the sooner we get this legislation done, the better. Many members have spoken on this topic. They would like to see this legislation enacted as soon as possible so that we fulfill our constitutional duty and finish the job that we have left undone for 26 years. As we take forward the work, this future legislation needs to interact and complement the national security law and the May 28th decision of the MPC so that we improve and establish this system, legal system and enforcement mechanisms that are fit for purpose. The national security risks are real. They are always there. They can come up all of a sudden. Without national security, we cannot protect people's lives and property. Without national security, social order will come under immense threat. The economy will be held back. Without national security, foreign forces will exploit this vulnerability. We will see social turmoil, violence, crimes, all kinds of vandalism, and that will go on, and there will be no stability. I want to say this once again. This is from Director Xia Baolong. Hong Kong looks peaceful on the surface, but there are undercurrents. The roots of chaos have yet to be removed, while the foundation for order needs strengthening. We need to stay vigilant at all times against those anti-China forces working under the pretext of freedom, livelihood. Those forces play tricks. We need to stay alert. Director Xia also said the entire community in Hong Kong needs to be on the side of the government. They need to act in unity to address this weak link in national security so that we are well prepared and we can give our undivided attention to economic development. President, electoral members, the entire community needs to focus on our economy. The sooner we get our legislation for Basic Law Article 23 done and finish the job, the sooner we can give our undivided attention to improving the economy and improving people's lives. From my exchange with electoral members, I can see this strong consensus that the government should start the consultation and legislation for Basic Law Article 23. The sooner, the better. The preparations have reached the final stage. We are in the home stretch. Once again, I thank members for their ideas. I thank them for the inspiring and constructive comments. I will look into them and study them. Thank you.
行政長
The Chief Executive's interactive exchange question and answer session ends. The Chief Executive will leave the chamber. Will members please stand up? The Chief Executive's interactive exchange question and answer session ends. The Council will resume on 31st of January 2024 at 11.